सतीदेवे कौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य वेशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Chapter 23. Why study the Vedanta Sutra? Knowledge is information gathered from the scriptures, and science is practical realization of that knowledge. Knowledge is scientific when it is gathered from the scriptures through the bona fide spiritual master, but when it is interpreted by speculation, it is mental confusion. By scientifically understanding the scriptural information through the bona fide spiritual master, one learns by one's own realization the truths of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is different from material manifestations as it is above the reactions of matter. Unless one scientifically understands, unless one scientifically understands the spiritual form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one becomes an impersonalist. Example comparing the Lord and the material manifestations to the sun and the sunshine is often given. The sunshine in itself is illumination, but that illumination is different from the sun. Yet the sun and the sunshine are not differently situated. For without the sun there can be no sunshine, and without sunshine there can be no meaning to the word sun. Unless one is freed from the influence of material energy, he cannot understand the Supreme Lord and his different energies, nor can one is captivated by the spell of material energy understand the spiritual form of the Lord. Unless there is realization of the transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no question of love of God, and without love of God, there is no perfection of human life. Just as the five gross elements of nature, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, are both within and without all living beings in this world, the Supreme Lord is both inside and outside this existence, and those who are devotees can realize this.
Pure devotees know very well that they are meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that all things that exist constitute the means by which they can serve the Lord. Therefore, because a pure devotee has been blessed by the Supreme Lord from within the core of his heart, wherever he looks, he sees the Lord and nothing more. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.55 confirms this relationship between the pure devotee and the Supreme Lord as follows. If a person's heart is always tied to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord with the rope of love, the Lord does not leave him. Indeed, even if his remembrance is not perfect, he is to be considered a first class devotee. An example of this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.30.4. When the gopis assembled for their rasa dance with Krishna, Krishna apparently left them. Consequently, they began to chant the holy name of Krishna and, being overwhelmed with madness, inquired about Krishna from the flowers and creepers in the forest. Krishna is like the sky, he is situated everywhere. Therefore, by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, we can learn about our eternal relationship with Supreme Lord, understand the procedure for regaining Him, and attain the ultimate realization, which is love of God.
Next, Lord Caitanya explained to Prakashan and Saraswati how can one achieve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotional service. First, the Lord quoted a verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in which Krishna says that he can be realized only through devotional service executed with faith and love. Indeed, it is devotional service which purifies the heart of devotees and elevates into the ultimate realization by which he serves the Supreme Lord with faith and love. Even if one is born in a low family, like a family of Chandalas, dog eaters, one can become filled with transcendental symptoms through realization of the supreme stage of love of Godhead. These transcendental symptoms are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. When pure devotees discuss subjects dealing with the Supreme Lord, who can cleanse all kinds of sinful reactions from the heart of his devotees, they become overwhelmed with ecstasy and display their different symptoms due to their devotional service. Bhagavatam also states when pure devotees chant the Lord's holy name, due to their spontaneous attachment for the Lord, they sometimes cry, sometimes laugh, sometimes dance, and sometimes sing, and so on, not carrying on, not caring for any social convention. We should understand, therefore, that Srimad Bhagavatam is the real explanation of the Brahma Sutra, for it is compiled by the same author Vyasadeva himself. In the Garuna Purana, it is said, Srimad Bhagavatam is the authorized explanation of the Brahma Sutra, and it is a further explanation of the Mahabharata. It is the explanation of the Gayatri Mantra, and the essence of all Vedic knowledge is this is Srimad Bhagavatam, containing 18,000 verses, is known as the explanation of the Vedic literature. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the sages of Naimisharanya asked Suta Goswami to explain the essence of Vedic literature. In answer, Suta Goswami presented Srimad Bhagavatam as the essence of all the Vedas, histories, and other Vedic literatures. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated that Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta knowledge, and that one who relishes the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam has no taste for studying any other literature. In the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the purport of the Gayatri Mantra is described. I offer my obeisance unto the Supreme Truth. Those from the first verse Srimad Bhagavatam deals with the supreme truth, which is described in the Bhagavatam as the source of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. Obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Vyasadeva Nama Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya directly indicate Lord Shri Krishna, who is the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki. That Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead is more ex- explicitly presented later in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Vasudeva assert that Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and that all other are neither his direct to indirect plenary portion or portions of the those portions. Srila Jiva Goswami has still more explicitly developed this subject in his Krishna Sandarbha and Brahma, the original living being, has substantially explained the subject of Shri Krishna in his treatise Brahma Samhita. The Samaveda also verifies the fact that Lord Krishna is the divine son of Devaki.
In his prayer,
Uh,
Srimad Bhagavatam, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam first purpose that Lord Krishna is the primal Lord, and if any transcendental nomenclature for the absolute personality of Godhead is to be accepted, it should be the name Krishna, meaning all attractive. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has affirmed in many passages that he is the original personality of Godhead, and this was confirmed by Arjuna, who cited great sage like Narad, Vyas, and many others. Also in the Padma Puran, it was stated that of the number names of the Lord, the name Krishna is the principal one. Therefore, although the name Vasudeva indicates the plenary portion of the personality of Godhead, and although all the different form of the Lord are identical with Vasudeva. In this text, Vasudeva principally indicates the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Sri Krishna is always meditated upon by the Paramhansas, those who are most perfect in the renounced order of life. Vasudeva, our Lord Shri Krishna, is the cause of all causes, and everything that exists in is an emanation from him. How this is so how this is so is explained in later chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Puran, uh, s- spotless Puran, because it contains transcendental narration of the pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The history of Srimad Bhagavatam is also very glorious. Sri Vedvyas, drawing on his mature experience of transcendental knowledge, compiled it under the instruction of Sri Narad Ji, his spiritual master. Vedvyas had compiled all the Vedic literatures, the four Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, the Purans, and the Mahabharat. Yet he was not satisfied. His dissatisfaction was observed by his spiritual master, and thus Narad advised him to write about the transcendental activities of the Lord Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna's transcendental activities are specifically described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The canto considered to contain the substance of the whole work. One should not approach the 10th canto immediately, but should approach it gradually by developing knowledge of the subject matters first presented.
Usually, a person with a philosophical mind is inquisitive to learn the origin of the creation. He sees the night sky and naturally asks, what are the stars? How are they situated? Who lives there? And so on. All these inquiries are quite natural for a human being because his consciousness is more developed than the animals. In answers to such inquiries, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam says that the Lord is the origin of the creation. He is the only creator but the maintainer and annihilator as well. The manifested cosmic creation, the manifested cosmic nature is created at a certain period by the will of the Lord. It is maintained for some time and finally it is annihilated by his will. Thus he is the supreme thus he is the supreme will behind all activities. Of course, there are atheists of various categories who do not believe in the creator, but that is due to only their poor fund of knowledge. The modern scientist creates the Sputniks and by some arrangement or they are thrown into the outer space to fly for some time under the control of a scientist far away. All the universes and the innumerable planets within them are similar to such as Sputniks and they are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
In the Vedic literature, it is said that the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is the chief among all living personalities. All living beings, from the first created being, Brahma, down to the smallest ant, are individual living entities. And above Brahma, there are many other living beings with individual capacities. The personality of Godhead himself is also a living being, as much an individual as other living beings. But the Supreme Lord is the supreme living being with the greatest mind and supermost inconceivable energies in great variety. If a man's mind can produce a s- Sputnik, we can very easily imagine that a mind higher than man's can produce wonderful things far superior to man-made Sputniks. A reasonable person will accept this argument, but stubborn, obstinate people will not. Shlavyasadev at once accepts the supreme mind as the Parmeshwar, the supreme controller, and offers his respectful obeisances to him. As stated in Bhagavad Gita and all other scriptures written by Srila Vyasadeva, that Parmeshwar is Sri Krishna himself. This is specifically stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Himself says that there is no Paratattva, Samam Gunam, other than Him. Therefore, the author at once worships the Paratattva, Sri Krishna, whose transcendental activities are described in the 10th canto. Unsculptured persons go at once to the 10th canto, especially to the five chapters in which Srila Vyasadeva has kindly described the Lord's rasa dance. However, this portion of Srimad Bhagavatam is the most confidential part of that great literature. Unless one is thoroughly accomplished in the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, one is surely to misunderstand the Lord's worshipable transcendental pastimes in the rasa dance and his loving dealings with the gopis. This subject matter is highly spiritual and technical, and only liberated personalities who have gradually attained the stage of Paramhamsa can transcendently relish the worshipable rasa dance. Should I continue, Mataji?
Vanshika can read.
Mataji's screen is not visible. Now visible. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva gives the reader Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva gives the reader a chance to gradually develop in spiritual realization before actually relishing the essence of the pastimes of the Lord. Thus, at the beginning, Vyasadeva purposefully invokes the Gayatri mantra with the word Dhimahi. The Gayatri mantra is especially meant for spiritually advanced people. When one attains success in chanting the Gayatri mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. But in order to chant the Gayatri mantra successfully, one must acquire the Brahmanical qualities and become perfectly situated in the mode of goodness. From that point, one can begin to transcendently realize the Lord, His name, His fame, His qualities, etc. Srimad Bhagavatam is a narration dealing with the Swarup of the Lord, which is manifested by His eternal potency. This potency is distinguished from the external potency, which has manifested the cosmic world within our experience. Srila Vyasadeva makes one clear distinction between the eternal and external potencies as factually reality, whereas the external manifested energy in the form of material existence is temporary and illusory, no more real than a mirage in the desert. Water may appear present in a mirage, but real water is somewhere else. Similarly, the manifested cosmic creation also appears to be reality, but it is simply a reflection of true reality, which exists in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are no mirages. Absolute truth is there. It is not here in the material world. Here, everything is relative truth, with one apparent truth depending upon another. This cosmic creation results from an interaction of the three modes of material nature. Temporary manifestations are so created as to present an illusion of reality to the bewildered mind of the conditioned soul, who appears to be in so many species of life, including higher demigods like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, and so on. In fact, there is no reality in the manifested world, but there appears to be reality because of the true reality in the spiritual world, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally resides in his transcendental paraphernalia.
The chief engineer of
Mataji, I have to read or Shivani Mataji?
Shivani Mataji.
the chief engineer of a complicated construction does not personally take part in the construction itself, but it is he only who knows every nook and corner of the construction, because everything is carried out under his direction only. In the words, he knows everything about the construction directly and indirectly. Similarly, the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme engineer of his cosmic creation, knows very well what is happening in every nook and corner of the cosmic creation. Although activities appear to be performed by someone else, in actuality, from Brahma down to the insignificant and on no one is independent in the material creation. The hand of the Supreme Lord is everywhere. All material elements as well as all spiritual spark are but emanation from his him only. Whatever is created in this material world is a result of the interaction of these two energies, material and spiritual, which emanate from the absolute truth. The personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna Vasudeva, a living entity knows as a chemist can manufacture water in the laboratory by mixing hydrogen and oxygen, but in reality, the living entity works under the direction of the Supreme Lord, and all the materials he use are supplied by the Lord. Thus, the Lord knows everything directly and indirectly in minute details, and he is fully independent as well. He can be compared to a gold mine, and the object within the cosmic creation can be compared to ornaments made from the gold, such as gold rings, gold necklace, and so on. The gold ring and necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively the gold is the mine and the gold is the ring of necklace are different. The complete philosophy of the absolute truth therefore centers about the fact that the absolute truth is simultaneously one with the different from his creation. Nothing is absolutely equal to the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth. Conditioned soul from Brahma, the engineer of this particular universe, down to an insignificant ant, are all creating some. माता जी scroll कीजिए. Something, but none of them are independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic wrongly thinks that there is no creator but his own good self, and this misconception is called Maya or illusion. Due to his poor font of knowledge, the materialistic cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses. Those he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape independent of a conscious background. This is referred by Srila Vasudeva in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. As stated before, Vasudeva is a liberated soul, and he compiled this book of authority after attaining spiritual perfection. Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is the source of everything, nothing is independent of him. In the sense, everything that exists is the body of the absolute truth. Any action or reaction of a part of a body becomes a cognizable fact of to the embodied soul. Similarly, since the creation is the body of the absolute truth, then everything in the creation is known to the absolute, both directly and indirectly.
In the Shruti mantra, it is stated that the absolute whole, or Brahman, is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him, everything is maintained by him, and at the end everything enters into him again. That is the law of nature. This is confirmed in the Smriti mantra, and there it is said that at the beginning of brahma's brahma at what? Beginning of Brahma's millennials, the source from which everything emanates, it is the absolute truth, or Brahma's, and that at the end of that millennials, the reservoir into which everything enters in that same absolute truth. Material scientists have haphazardly take it for granted that the ultimate source of this planetary system is the sun, but They are unable to explain the source of the sun. In the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, the ultimate source is explained. According to the Vedic literature, Brahma is the creator of this universe, but because he had to meditate to receive the inspiration for such creation, he is not the ultimate creator. As stated that in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. There is and there it is said that the Supreme Lord inspired Brahma, the secondary creator, and enable him to carry out his creative functions. In this way, the Supreme Lord is the supervising engineer, the real mind behind all creative agents is the absolute is the absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna himself stated that it is he only who superintends the creative energy, the sum total of matter. Thus, Sri Ved Vyas worshipping neither Brahma nor the sun, but the Supreme Lord, who guides both Brahma and the sun in their creative activities. The Sanskrit words abhijna and shwarat appealing appearing in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam are significant. These two words distinguished the Lord from all over living entities. No living entity other than the Supreme Being, the absolute personality of Godhead, is either Abhijana or Swarat. And that is none of them are either fully cognizant or fully independent. Everyone has to receive knowledge from his superior, even Brahma, who is the first living being within this material world, has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord and take help from him in order to create. If neither Brahma nor the sun can create anything without acquiring knowledge from a superior, then what to speak of the material scientists who are fully dependent on so many things. Modern scientists like Jagdish Chandra Bose, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, etc. Many boast of their respective creative energies, but all were dependent on the Supreme Lord for so many things. After all, the highly intelligent brain of these gentlemen were certainly not the products of any human being. The brain were created by another agent. If brains like those of Einstein or Newton could have been manufactured by a human being, then mankind would produced many such brains instead of eulogizing these scientists. If such scientists cannot even manufacture such brain, what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord.
Even the Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves that they have become the Lord are not Abhigyan or Swarat, fully cognizant or fully independent. The Mayavadi monists undergo a severe process of austerity and penance to acquire the knowledge needed for becoming one with the Lord. But ultimately, they become dependent on some rich follower who supplies them with requisite paraphernalia to construct great monasteries and temples. Atheists like Ravan and Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe austerities before they could flout the authority of the Lord. But ultimately, they were so helpless that they could not save themselves, and the Lord appeared before them as cruel death. This is also applicable to the modern atheists who dare to flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be rewarded with the same will be dealt as the same rewards as were given in the past to great atheists like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu. History repeats itself, and what occurred in the past will reoccur again and again when there is necessity. Whenever the authority of the Lord is neglected, the penalties that by the laws of nature are always there. That the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead is all perfect is confirmed in all Shruti mantras. It is said in the Shruti mantras that the all perfect Lord glanced over matter and thus created all living beings. The living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord, and He impregnates the vast material nature with the seeds of spiritual sparks. Thus, the creative energies are set in motion for many wonderful creations. When one atheist argued the Lord that God is no more expert than the manufacturer of a subtle watch that has so many delicate parts, we had to reply that God is a great mechanic than the watchmaker because he creates one machine in male and female forms and that goes on producing innumerable similar machines without the further attention of the Lord. If a man could manufacture a set of machines capable of producing other machines without the man giving the matter any further attention, then the man could be said to be equal the intelligence of the Lord. But that is not possible. Each and every one of man's imperfect machines has to be handled individually by a mechanic. Because no one can be equal to God in intelligence. Other name for God is Asamurtha, which indicates that no one is equal to or greater than him. Everyone has this intellectual and superior. No one can claim that he is neither, but but this is not the case with the Lord. The Shruti mantras indicate that before the creation of the material universe, there existed the Lord who is the master of everyone. It was Lord who instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge that Supreme Personality of Godhead has to be obeyed in all respects. Anyone who wants to become freed from material entanglement must surrender unto him, and this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. तो उसमें बहुत सारी नॉलेजेस दी हैं, जैसे ये बताने के लिए कि गॉड जो है वो अल्टीमेट है, इसलिए एग्जाम्पल लिया गया है कि कोई आर्ग्यू कर सकता है कि जो घड़ी बनाने वाला है वो ज़्यादा बड़ा है भगवान से, क्योंकि वो उसमें तो बहुत सारे डेलिकेट पार्ट्स होते हैं, बट भगवान ने ऐसी मशीन बनाई है स्त्री और पुरुष के रूप में, जो कि भगवान ने एक सेट ऑफ मशीन बना दी, उसके बाद वो लोग खुद बनाते जा रहे हैं। तो इसमें श्रील प्रभुपाद लिखते हैं कि अगर मैन ऐसी कोई मशीन बना पाए जो कि खुद आगे जा करके अपनी मशीन्स बनाते रहे विदाउट द फर्दर अटेंशन ऑफ अ मैन, तो हम मान सकते हैं कि हाँ थोड़ा बहुत इंटेलिजेंट है, लेकिन ऐसा कोई नहीं कर सकता। तो जितने भी श्रुति मंत्रास हैं वो कंफर्म करते हैं। श्रुति मंत्रास क्या होते हैं? एक होता है स्मृति, एक होता है श्रुति। श्रुति यानी कि भगवान जो डायरेक्ट बताते हैं, और स्मृति मंत्रास यानी कि जैसे महाभारत है, भगवत गीता है, तो ये सब क्या है? उनके बारे में है, तो ये स्मृति है। और फिर हम देखते हैं कि जितने भी एथिस्ट होते हैं, चाहे मायावादी हो चाहे एथिस्ट हो, मायावादी मीन्स कि वो समझते हैं कि भगवान जो है इम्पर्सनलिस्ट है, और वो भी स्वराट नहीं है। भगवान की क्या क्वालिटी है कि वो इंडिपेंडेंट है और फुल्ली कॉग्निजेंट है। लेकिन जो मायावादी है वो इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं होते, वो किस पे डिपेंडेंट होते हैं? उनके कोई रिच फॉलोअर पे, जो कि उनको पैसे प्रोवाइड करते हैं और बड़े बड़े उनके लिए टेम्पल्स बनाते हैं। तो इससे कोई फायदा नहीं है, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली वो एक मटेरियलिस्ट पे डिपेंडेंट रहता है। नेक्स्ट इज रावण एंड हिरण्यकशिपु। ये कौन थे? बहुत बड़े एथिस्ट थे, लेकिन जब सुप्रीम पर्सनालिटी ऑफ गॉड उनके सामने डेथ के रूप में आए तब वो कुछ नहीं कर पाए। ऑलरेडी उन्होंने बहुत ज्यादा पेनेंसेस किए थे, बट वो नहीं डिफीट कर पाए भगवान को। तो नेक्स्ट वर्स तो यही था कि श्रीमद् भागवतम का जो फर्स्ट वर्स है वो क्या डिस्क्राइब करता है कि भगवान क्या है? अभिज्ञान है एंड स्वराट है, और कोई भी अदर लिविंग एंटिटी स्वराट नहीं है। हम देखते हैं जितने मॉडर्न साइंटिस्ट हैं वो हम देख सकते हैं कि बहुत सारी चीजें क्रिएट करा, बट अल्टीमेटली है सारी चीजें किसकी? भगवान की है, क्योंकि जो ब्रेन है अल्टीमेटली सारे किसने बनाए हैं? अगर मैं इतना इंटेलिजेंट है तो वो ब्रेन भी तो भगवान ही बनाए हैं। एंड नेक्स्ट वर्स की तो मटेरियल साइंटिस्ट क्या बोलते हैं कि जो सन है वो अल्टीमेट है पूरे मटेरियल क्रिएशन में, बट अल्टीमेटली जो सन का सोर्स है वो क्या है? वो कोई नहीं बताता। तो श्रीमद् भागवत में बताया गया है कि अल्टीमेट सोर्स क्या है। तो ब्रह्मा जो है वो क्रिएटर है, लेकिन ब्रह्मा को नॉलेज कौन देते हैं? भगवान देते हैं। मतलब ब्रह्मा जी की उत्पत्ति हुई थी तो उनको तप 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 सुनाई दे रहा था, तो वो तपस्या करते हैं। उसके बाद फिर भगवान उनको नॉलेज देते हैं और वो क्रिएशन करना स्टार्ट करते हैं। तो अल्टीमेटली नॉलेज ब्रह्मा जी भी की भी किससे आ रही है? कृष्णा से। So the Srila Vyasadeva worships neither Brahma nor Sun but the Supreme Lord, क्योंकि दोनों ने ही सूर्यदेव भगवान भगवत गीता में कहते हैं कि उन्होंने सूर्यदेव विवस्वान को भगवत गीता की नॉलेज दी थी। तो चाहे ब्रह्मा जी हो, चाहे जो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड की छोटी सी छोटी चींटी हो, वो सब किस पे डिपेंडेंट है? कृष्णा पे। कोई भी इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं है। तो ऐसे अलग अलग एनालॉजी से ये बताया जा रहा है कि कैसे भगवान जो है वो अल्टीमेट है। फिर एक बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल आता है कि जिस तरह से गोल्ड है, गोल्ड की रिंग्स है, गोल्ड के नेकलेसेस है, वो सब क्या है? गोल्ड से ही बने हैं। तो क्वालिटेटिवली देखा जाए तो सोने की खदान में जो गोल्ड है और हमारी जो सोने की रिंग है, वो दोनों सेम है, लेकिन क्वांटिटी वाइज देखा जाए तो दोनों बहुत अलग है। जैसे हमने कल देखा था कि एक समुद्र की बूंद वो भी खारी होती है, बट समुद्र और समुद्र की बूंद में बहुत फर्क है। तो इसी तरह लिविंग एंटिटी क्वालिटेटिवली सेम है भगवान से, बट क्वांटिटेटिवली डिफरेंट है। और भगवान की दो एनर्जीज है, मटेरियल एंड स्पिरिचुअल, जिसको हम भगवत गीता में पढ़ेंगे, पराशक्ति और अपराशक्ति। तो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में जो भी चीजें हैं वो किसके द्वारा होती है? भगवान की मटेरियल और स्पिरिचुअल एनर्जी के इंटरेक्शन से होती है। स्पिरिचुअल एनर्जी क्या है? उनकी जो जीवात्मा है वो उनकी स्पिरिचुअल एनर्जी है। एंड अल्टीमेटली जो योग माया शक्ति है वो सुप्रीम है। हम्म। तो एक बहुत अच्छा एक और पॉइंट आता है कि श्रीमद् भागवतम किसके बारे में बताता है? भगवान के फॉर्म के बारे में, जो कि कोई भी आजकल नहीं डिस्कस करना चाहता है। सब लोग बोलते हैं कि भगवान एक रोशनी है, बट श्रीमद् भागवतम बताता है कि अल्टीमेटली भगवान का एक फॉर्म है और उनसे सारी एनर्जीज आ रही है। तो वाटर में अपीयर प्रेजेंट इन द मिराज बट रियल वाटर इज समवेयर एल्स। सिमिलरली द मैनिफेस्टेड कॉस्मिक, हाँ, तो हम देखते हैं जिस तरह से मिराज में पानी होता है बट अल्टीमेटली वहाँ पे पानी नहीं है, उसी तरह हम यहाँ पे देखते हैं भौतिक जगत में कि ये सारी चीजें रियल लग रही हैं, बट एक्चुअली में रियलिटी कहाँ पे है? स्पिरिचुअल वर्ल्ड में। स्पिरिचुअल वर्ल्ड में कोई कोई मिराजेस नहीं है, क्योंकि जो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड है वो स्पिरिचुअल वर्ल्ड का एक रिफ्लेक्शन है। और फिर हमने इससे ऊपर देखा कि नारद मुनि, जब व्यासदेव ने वो सारी चीजें लिख दी थी, लेकिन फिर भी उनको जब सेटिस्फेक्शन नहीं हो रहा था, तब नारद मुनि आते हैं और वो उन्हें क्या बताया था? गायत्री मंत्र, यानी लाइक वो गायत्री मंत्र ही, क्योंकि अलग अलग टाइप के होते हैं। तो गायत्री मंत्र इज स्पेशली मेंट फॉर स्पिरिचुअली एडवांस पीपल। कल ही मैंने पढ़ा था कि जो ब्राह्मण दीक्षा होती है, ब्राह्मण दीक्षा का मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो डिवोटी बहुत ज्यादा सुप्रीम हो गए हैं। ब्राह्मण दीक्षा का अर्थ होता है हमारे स्पिरिचुअल मास्टर क्यों देते हैं कि हमारी सिंसियरिटी को देख करके अगर हम थोड़ा सा और सिंसियर हो जाते हैं तो हमें ब्राह्मण दीक्षा मिलती है। और गायत्री मंत्र अगर हम चैंट करते हैं तो उससे क्या होता है? हम हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र और अच्छे से जप कर पाते हैं। तो इस वजह से ब्राह्मण दीक्षा दी जाती है, नॉट कि हम डीटी वर्शिप कर रहे हैं या हम बहुत ज्यादा एडवांस हो गए हैं। वो क्या होता है? एक और फेज होता है जिससे हम और अच्छे से प्रोग्रेस कर पाए। So when one attains success in chanting Gayatri Mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. But first one must acquire the Brahminical qualities before becoming. तो इसके लिए हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? हमें मोड ऑफ गुडनेस में आना पड़ेगा ताकि हम गायत्री मंत्र को अच्छे से चैंट कर पाए। और गायत्री मंत्र के बहुत सारे रूल्स होते हैं, हमें ऐसे नहीं चैंट करना चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर थोड़ा सा भी गलत होता है ना तो उसका अलग परिणाम हो जाता है। तो बहुत सारे जो पीपल होते हैं, जैसे श्रीमद् भागवत में 10 स्कंद है, तो 10वें स्कंद में भगवान की सारी लीलाएं हैं, स्पेशली जो 5 चैप्टर्स ऑफ रास लीला है। तो बहुत सारे जो लोग होते हैं वो सीधे सीधे रासलीला पे पहुंच जाते हैं, बट ऐसा नहीं करना है। जितने भी परमहंस हैं वो कभी रासलीला को ऐसे डिस्कस नहीं करते। वो हमेशा जो फैक्ट है, भगवान की जो सुपीरियोरिटी है, उनका जो शक्तियां हैं, उनके बारे में डिस्कस करते हैं। और भगवान स्वयं भी बताते हैं भगवत गीता में कि उनसे बड़ा और कोई नहीं है, लाइक शी इज द सम्मम बोनम। तो अगर किसी भी लाइक इंटेलिजेंट इंसान को अगर हम बताएं कि हम जो भी चीजें देख रहे हैं उसको कोई ना किसी ने बनाया है, तो अल्टीमेटली जो हम बड़े बड़े स्पुतनिक्स देख रहे हैं, लाइक जो मैन है वो स्पेसशिप भेजता है, बट अल्टीमेटली जो बड़े बड़े प्लैनेट्स हैं वो भी तो स्पेस में रिवॉल्व कर रहे हैं, उनको किसी ने बनाया होगा। तो जो इंटेलिजेंट होगा वो उसको एक्सेप्ट कर लेगा, बट जो बुद्धिमान नहीं है इतना तो वो उसको आर्ग्यू करेगा। और ये नेचुरल है किसी भी इंसान के लिए ये सारी चीजें इंक्वायर करना कि आसपास जो हमारी चीज है वो सब क्या है। तो श्रीमद् भागवतम पूरी नॉलेज देता है। द ऑथर ऑफ श्रीमद् भागवतम सेज दैट लॉर्ड इज द ओरिजिन ऑफ क्रिएशन, और पूरा कैसे क्रिएशन होता है वो सारा कैंटोस में डिस्क्राइब्ड है। तो अगर हम भागवतम अच्छे से पढ़ेंगे तो हम चीजों को समझ सकते हैं। और श्रीमद् भागवतम को चैतन्य महाप्रभु ने क्या डिस्क्राइब किया, एज अ स्पॉटलेस पुराण, क्योंकि इसमें नरेशन से किसके बारे में, भगवान श्री कृष्ण के बारे में। और कहा जाता है जहाँ पे कृष्ण है वहां पे माया नहीं हो सकती। तो श्रीमद् भागवतम जो है वो सूर्य के समान है, क्योंकि उसमें कृष्ण के पास टाइम्स को डिस्कस किया गया। तो श्री कृष्ण ट्रांसेंडेंटल एक्टिविटीज आर डिस्क्राइब्ड इन 10th कैंटो ऑफ श्रीमद् भागवतम, बट one should approach it gradually by developing knowledge। तो सबसे पहले हमें बेसिक फिलोसफी होनी चाहिए, उसके बाद में हम भगवान की लीलाओं को समझ पाएंगे। इसलिए जब हम अमरीन प्रभु जी के लेक्चर्स भी सुनते हैं तो वो पहले फिलोसफी डिस्कस करते हैं, उसके बाद वो लीलाओं में जाते हैं। क्योंकि अगर हमारे पास बेसिक नॉलेज नहीं होगा तो हम क्या करेंगे, उसको अपने एंजॉयमेंट के लिए सुनेंगे कि हाँ कृष्णा ने राधा रानी का हाथ पकड़ा, और फिर हम उसको खुद से कोरिलेट करेंगे। बट ये सब क्या है, ये बद्ध जीव आत्मा है, तो उसको इतना ज्ञान नहीं है कि हमें खुद से कोरिलेट नहीं करना है। उनकी जो एक्टिविटीज है वो सुप्रीम है, तो इसलिए हमें जो फिलोसफी है उसका ज्ञान होना बहुत आवश्यक है। तो इसी लाइक जो वेदांत सूत्र है वो किसने लिखा था, वो श्री व्यासदेव ने लिखा था, हमने कल भी सुना था। और क्यों लिखा था, क्योंकि जो वेदांत सूत्र है उसमें उन्होंने बहुत इनडायरेक्ट वे में बताया कि हमें भगवान की भक्ति करनी चाहिए। लेकिन जो शंकराचार्य की जो फिलोसफी है वो वेदांत सूत्र को अलग वे में इंटरप्रेट करती है। वो बताती है कि जो भगवान है वो इम्पर्सनल है, और हमें अंत में जाकर के उनसे मिलना है। तो जिसने बुक लिखी है वही बता सकता है ना कि उसके लिखने का मतलब क्या है, या वो कहना क्या चाहता है। कोई और तो उसके बारे में नहीं बता सकता। उसी प्रकार श्रीमद् भागवतम का जो कमेंट्री है वो वेदांत सूत्र पे किसने लिखा है, व्यासदेव ने। तो वो तो अल्टीमेटली वही बताएंगे ना कि उन्होंने जो चीजें लिखी हैं उसका असली मर्म क्या है। ओके सो और एक और ये हम एनोलॉजी रिवाइज कर लेते हैं कि भगवान को जिस तरह से हम देखते हैं कि सन है और सूर्य है और सूर्य की रोशनी है। तो सूर्य की रोशनी अलग भी है और एक भी है। अलग कैसे है कि सूर्य अलग है, सूर्य की रोशनी अलग है। आदि तो वो सूर्य से ही है। ऐसा नहीं कि अगर सनशाइन है तो सन नहीं है, या अगर सन है तो सनशाइन नहीं है। तो दोनों एक दूसरे से को रिलेटेड है। उसी प्रकार हम देखते हैं कि भगवान की जो ब्रह्म ज्योति है, ब्रह्म ज्योति भगवान से ही आ रही है, बट ऐसा नहीं कि ब्रह्म ज्योति ही भगवान है। सो दीज वर द एनोलॉजीज। हम एक डायरी में इसको नोट करके रख सकते हैं ताकि कभी किसी ने कुछ पूछा तो हमें याद रहे। और इसलिए हम ट्राई करेंगे कि एंड में रीड करने के बाद में एक बार इसको डिस्कस कर लें। ये जो बुक है बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, टीचिंग्स ऑफ लॉर्ड चैतन्य। अगर ये बुक हमको याद हो गई ना, तो बेसिकली ये बुक पहले लिखी नहीं है। ये बुक प्रभुपाद जी के 5 लेक्चर्स थे चैतन्य चरितामृत पे, उसी का कंपाइलेशन है, टीचिंग्स ऑफ लॉर्ड चैतन्य। Okay, so we'll end the session here. Anyone wants to do Guru Vandana?
Yes, Mataji, I'll do.
Yes, okay.
Should I start?
Yes.
Guru Mukha Padma. Oh, sorry. Shri Guru Charana Padma. केवल भगति सद्मा मंदमूरी सावधान माते चाहर प्रसादे भार ए भव तुरिया जाय कृष्ण प्राप्ति होए जहाँ होए थे गुरुमुख पद्म वाक्या चितते कोरिया और ना कोई हो मन आशा। श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति। जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा। चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो। प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जते वेदिकाय जाहर चरितो। श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना। हाँ हाँ प्रभु करो दया देहु मोरे पद छाया ए बेजाज घोषुक त्रिभुवना। ए बेजाज घोषुक त्रिभुवन जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा। जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय श्री गुरुदेव। Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaura Hari Bol. Translation: The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the abode of pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great care and attention. My dear brothers, it is through the grace of our spiritual master that we can cross over this material existence and attain Krishna. May the teachings emanating from the lotus mouth of our spiritual master, one with our heart, and do not desire anything else. Attachment to his lotus feet is the best way to make spiritual advancement. His mercy fulfills all desires for spiritual perfection. He who has given us the gift of transcendental vision is our Lord, birth after birth. It is by His mercy that divine knowledge is revealed within our hearts, bestowing pure love for Krishna and destroying ignorance. The Vedic scriptures sing of His character. O spiritual master, O ocean of mercy and friend of the fallen, O universal teacher and life of all people, be merciful unto us, O master, and give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your glories now be proclaimed throughout the three worlds. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Okay. Thank you so much, Madhavis, for joining. Vancha Kalpatarubheshcha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Okay. Thank you, Madhavis.